Hi.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Very nice to meet you. Rena, right?
Yes.
Logan Warnick.
Good to
I'm
meet
the attorney assigned to your case. It's great to meet you. I've heard a little bit about you from our secretary.
Yeah, thanks for meeting with me. I did make a couple notes just so I wouldn't forget anything. Is okay if I just.
Oh yeah, no, that's totally fine. Whatever's most comfortable for you. We do have some snacks here in our office, so if you'd like any of those, feel free to grab.
These are my favorite. Thank you.
Also, just at any point, if you need a break or anything like that, just let me know. That's totally fine. Did you find our office okay? Was it kind of tricky?
Yeah, it was actually secretary up front was actually very helpful and directed me back here. So yeah,
good,
it was really,
good.
really smooth.
Are you from here in town or?
Not originally. So I lived in Florida for years and years. And I have a son. He's actually in college right now. And he was at University of Washington. So that's what brought me here about a year ago.
Oh, fantastic.
But he actually just transferred to UCLA. So I decided I'll just stay here. Like, I thought I wouldn't like the rain, but it's been pretty nice. So just decided
Great.
to stay.
So have you been enjoying the good weather we've been having this weekend?
Oh my gosh, it's been so nice. so nice.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, you probably already know a little bit about kind of how this is going to work, but I just wanted to get some housekeeping items out of the way and then kind of just set an agenda. And if you have any questions at any point, just feel free to stop me. That's totally fine.
Cool.
So this is just going to be an hour-long consultation. If we go a little bit over an hour, that's totally fine. The fee for this kind of case is just $100 for that consultation. And then again, our secretary should have mentioned this a little bit, but our fee structure is just on a contingency fee. So if we have your case and we don't get anything, you don't have to pay us anything. But if we do win either a settlement or at trial, we'll get a piece of that. It's just a set 25% if it's before trial, but after trial's been scheduled, it'll be 33%.
Yeah, she
So
reviewed that with me.
Great. Yeah, we just want to be fully upfront about that, so
Yeah,
you're not surprised at any point. And then along with that, everything that we mentioned today is confidential, so it's covered by attorney-client privilege. So you won't have to worry. Sorry, let me just check that real quick. Is it okay with you if I'm just kind of taking notes as we go?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll be listening intently to you,
Sure.
but I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything big.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Perfect. Okay, so just as far as the agenda goes, I want to make sure I'm just kind of framing what this is going to look like. So first, I just want to gather all the information that you have to give me, really just allow you to share everything that's happened to you and what you're looking for help with. And I'm just going to be listening, kind of asking some follow-up questions to kind of make sure that I understand. And then once we've gotten through everything that you have to share, we'll kind of generate some options just based on the priorities that you have, like what's most important to you, what's not as important. And then third, after that, I'll give kind of my thoughts and some counsel on what I think could maybe be a good fit for you. And then I'll also give you just a referral sheet with some information about tax consequences, because when you're getting a big settlement, sometimes that affects like the taxes you have to pay, and then just some other things like that. And then fourth, we'll hopefully be able to come to a decision in this period about how you want to move forward, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
All right. Any questions about any of that? Sorry, I know that's a lot of
No,
information.
I think that's really helpful that you like laid it all out. So
Okay.
yeah, I think that's good.
Perfect. So I guess I'll just kind of turn it over to you. Feel free to just share anything you want, and I'll just be listening and taking some notes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so like I said, I moved here about a year ago, and I've worked as a secretary for like several years. So that was kind of the job I was looking for when I moved here. And so I applied to a couple different firms in the area, but I ended up at Johnson & Jones. They just like offered me the best pay. So that's where I started back in September. I think it was like September 5th of last year. And so within my first week, they had assigned me to the lawyer that I was going to be working with. His name is Martin Green, and he's kind of, the big deal of the firm, like brings in the most business, very successful.
Sure.
And the first day that I started working with him, his like very first comment to me was that he like had specifically requested me as his secretary because he was like really interested in getting to know me. And like wanting the opportunity to work with me, which kind of made me feel uncomfortable, but I like kind of brushed it off because I was like, I know there's like guys like that in the field and I've been around, so I was kind of not worried about it. I did think there'd be like less of that in Seattle versus Florida, but like it's whatever. So it was like kind of fine originally, and then like right after that he started like hitting on me quite a bit. He had a tendency to make like just off-color jokes, and he would like come up to my desk and like lean against my thigh, which was like kind of not okay. And then there was also like one night that we were working pretty late, and he just kind of threw out there that we should like go hot tubbing together afterwards, and I said no thanks, trying to be polite, but it was kind of like that's not okay. And then there was another time, so it just kind of like escalated from there. So another time after that, he actually just like threw a pencil like at my breasts and laughed at that. And this was all like within my first month, like all these things happened.
Okay.
So then I think it was about like 6 weeks in, we went to lunch because we were discussing a case. I was like helping him organize all the documents and everything. And he suggested that we like go away for the weekend together. I thought that was way out of line. And so it made me pretty angry. And I said, no, obviously, like, no, I don't want to go. But since it was like at this lunch, obviously no one was around. So nobody had seen any of these things happening. But they were all just like really embarrassing. Like I felt really awkward and kind of just like, I don't know. It was just like too personal, I think. So then I think after I had kind of rejected him several times, like trying to be nice, but also trying to set the boundary, he just kind of started getting really rude. So he would like try and make me like feel bad or look dumb like at work. And he even, in front of other people this time, it was around Halloween, he took actually like a pack of M&Ms and like slid it into my like breast pocket and was like, let's find out which breast is bigger. And that was obviously like so embarrassing. Like all my coworkers were around, and like I couldn't believe that he would do that. So that was kind of like when I hit the wall, and I was like, okay, like I need to do something about this. So I went to our office manager, just to kind of report like what had happened, because I didn't want it to go any further without like anyone knowing.
This is after the Halloween
After
incident?
the Halloween, yeah.
Okay.
And so I like brought it up to him and like said, you know, all the incidents that had happened, specifically like this happened literally today in the office, just barely, and I'm bringing it to you right now. And I felt like he kind of just laughed it off. He was kind of just like, oh, just have a sense of humor, like he's just messing around. But like that's obviously not okay. And so that kind of put me in a tricky place, because I felt like something should be done about it, but I didn't really feel like I could go to HR because my manager kind of was making a joke of it. So it like just made it very apparent to me that they like care more about green than like any of us feeling safe or respected. So I didn't like file a complaint or anything, because I figured like they wouldn't do anything about it. Even though like I know how. Like they gave us this step, so I wasn't like completely helpless, but I just figured it would be like pointless, so I didn't do it. Just because like I feel like it shouldn't be allowed, but I don't think they'll do anything about it. So I kind of seems like, what's the point, you know? So then after that, I just kind of put up with it for a little bit. And then eventually they just kind of were like, okay, we'll just transfer you. So I was transferred to another paralegal and a different attorney. So it's like same firm, but just a different section of the office. So I was no longer around Martin all the time, but he would still just like come over to my new desk and just like stare at me, which was really uncomfortable. And so that was like in November, so a couple weeks after like what had happened. Yeah, so that happened at least a couple times, that he would just come over and like just look at me. And then I just like started feeling like I like mad, I'm upset, like I feel awkward, like unsafe, like so there's just a lot of feelings that started happening, because he just would like appear out of nowhere, and I just like really hated that. Yeah, so like around that time is when I started going to therapy, just to kind of be like, am I crazy, or like is this actually a big deal? So that was in December, so I was just kind of like, I'll just tough it out, and then, but once December hit, I was
this
like,
last December?
Yeah, I was like, I just need to get some extra help. And my therapist has been awesome. And they suggested that I go to the EEOC, or their office, I guess, and like actually file an official like sex discrimination charge. So I did that, kind of hoping that like some action would be taken. But they told me that it would be like several weeks, and all of this had transpired, like since September to December, so a lot of time had already passed. And so just kind of the stress of knowing that it would be an additional potentially like months before anything was even done, I kind of just like couldn't deal anymore, and so I ended up quitting. And so December 31st was my last day. I just was like, I just need to be done. Yeah, so that's kind of what brought me here today, is I just like, I need someone to just kind of advocate for me, because obviously like what's gone down is like not okay.
Yeah.
But I just like didn't really feel like I could do any of that in the streams of the firm. So sorry, that was like a ton of information, but
No.
that's kind of the basic timeline.
Yeah, thank you so much for being willing to share all that. It's obviously very serious and very difficult to deal with. I heard you mention a couple times you're angry, you're upset, just felt kind of uncomfortable and awkward throughout this process. What effect has that had on you, I guess? So you mentioned you felt like you had to quit your job and start therapy, but what other I guess issues have you suffered from all of this happening?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think mainly just kind of the like, it's put me into a place where I just don't even feel capable. Like I don't leave my home anymore. I like haven't worked. I've been in therapy literally since I left. So like for the past 3 months, I've like consistently gone to therapy. But like I don't have a job. I'm just kind of living on savings, because I just am like, if this happened, here, like why would it not happen in another place? So I just kind of feel like I can't even, I don't know, live my life. I just kind of feel a little trapped by it. And it's starting to like cause me additional stress, because I've like almost depleted my savings. And so most of it is just like the mental emotional part, but just kind of logistically too. Like I can't just not work, for a lot longer. So yeah, that's kind of the main ones, I think.
Yeah. Have you been able to look for any jobs, or has it just been too hard during this time? Like, are you kind of out and about looking to see what there is that might be better? Or?
Not right now. I just feel like I can't handle the like potentials of like being attacked again. So I'm just like, I'm not even really considering it right now. I just kind of want to get this behind me first.
Okay. And is there anything else that Marvin said or did, or other people in the firm? You mentioned kind of going to the HR person, well, to the office manager, and not being able to go to HR. Was there any other conduct from anyone else that was troubling or concerning, or anything else that?
Yeah, not really any direct conduct like towards me from anybody else. But I have heard, I have like there's two girls that have worked. One of them's still there, but one of them was not. Both of them had worked at the same firm, and had the same experience. So one of them was, I'll just like tell you, I don't know if I'll be like helpful references. So one is Janet Brothers.
Okay.
Both of them were like other secretaries. And then Sarah Smith was the other. And they both, I've only really talked to Janet about it, and she's the one who told me that like Sarah had experienced something similar. But yeah, Janet had said that Martin harassed her a bunch, and Sarah, Janet did go to HR, but kind of had a similar experience as like me with the manager. They just kind of were like, oh, don't worry about it. And nobody even extended the option to her of like filing an actual complaint. We don't know if Sarah did, but she has just kind of like left, doesn't want to be a whistleblower, kind of doesn't want to be involved. But Janet has said that she thinks there's even other women in the firm who probably just like haven't said anything but have experienced similar things.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's like office drama that he like got somebody pregnant and like she got paid off because she like wouldn't have an abortion. So like this is obviously, I'm not the only incident, like there's definitely others, which kind of like makes me even more mad about it, just because it's like, where's the justice for all of us kind of.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't think like Janet definitely doesn't feel comfortable like testifying or really being super involved because she still works there. And like I said, Sarah doesn't want to be like considered a tattle or whatever.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just kind of like freaky for all of us. I think we're all just kind of like scared because it seems like Martin is kind of this untouchable like god in the
Big
firm.
deal at the firm, yeah.
So we're all kind of like nervous, but
Sure. Okay. No, I think that's really good at a general level. I'd like to get a little bit more specific on a couple things,
Sure.
just as best you can remember. And again, like at any point, if you need to take a break or if you're just not comfortable, like that's okay. So I want to just kind of get a little bit specific. You mentioned that Martin at one point mentioned that he wanted to go away for a weekend together. Can you just tell me a little bit more about that, like what you thought he meant by that, and kind of how that made you feel, and maybe any other reactions from other people?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously it had like sexual undertones to like what he was saying. He didn't explicitly say like, "Oh, come up to this cabin and do business with me," but it was very obviously like not professional. Like he wasn't wanting to do work. It was very much for pleasure, and that made me really uncomfortable because I try to prioritize having the professional relationships, I guess. And also like it was very not consensual. Like he just kept kind of pushing what he wanted from me, and that was kind of where I drew the line of no, like I don't want to go away with you on a vacation. Like no, you're just my coworker. But it was just kind of the persistence that made me kind of feel like, what's he gonna do? Is he just gonna like grab me? Like I don't know, at work. And so that kind of created more uncertainty and kind of anxiety just being in the office with him.
Okay. And going back to his other comments about which breast is bigger and throwing the pencil with the M&M incidents, is there kind of anything else that was happening as part of that?
Nothing like super directly. I think it was very, at least the M&M incident was kind of showboating almost. I felt like he kind of was like proving that he was untouchable because in that case there were multiple people around that saw it happen, and still that was when the manager was like, take a joke. Previous incidents were just kind of him coming up to me at my desk and just being inappropriate or saying dumb things to me. But that one specifically was like in front of multiple people. Like obviously he made me an object, and it was very uncomfortable for everyone who was there. Like no one was laughing. Everyone was kind of, aghast by what he was doing. So he didn't really say anything else to me, but I feel like he didn't really need to in that moment because he had already kind of done the damage of, making me feel worthless in that moment. So.
With that, I remember you mentioning that each time you kind of set a boundary. Could you tell me a little bit more about that, like what that looked like after some of these incidents, what you said? Yeah.
Sure. So first one, the first kind of comment that he made to me, I kind of was like, oh, he's excited, like he knows I'm hopefully like a good secretary. I was like hired for good reasons. But just like as he started making more and more comments to me, and then like inviting me to go hot tubbing, I tried to start polite but make it very obvious like no, and give him no hope that was an option. And then obviously I had to just kind of get more and more firm and kind of aggressive with it as his actions got kind of more aggressive towards me. So yeah, just kind of starting with that like polite no, like, oh sorry, like I'm busy, but like no thank you, I'm not interested in that kind of relationship with you. But yeah, obviously like towards the end I didn't have as great of responses because I was really angry. And so it was kind of more harsh and kind of like obviously pushing him away. But yeah, I've given him no invitation and no inclination or no, there's no possible way that he could have interpreted my rejections as like playing hard to get or anything. Like it's been very clear that I don't want anything to do with him.
And would you say that, so I remember you mentioning that you were transferred to a different office.
Yeah, different attorney, yeah.
Would you say, would that have been something that you would have sought even if you hadn't been assigned away?
I think for sure, just because things had been escalating, so it was just kind of nice. I think the managers just kind of didn't want me to complain more, probably. I don't know, they didn't really give me a reason, they just kind of moved me. But even still, like Martin still came over. It just was like, instead of being right outside his office, I was like in another section. So it was still an issue, but it definitely was a preferred situation initially than just being his direct secretary.
But then even then, would you say, I guess even then, how would you describe those? So after being moved, you mentioned that obviously you ended up still quitting.
Yeah.
But what was it like just working after being moved?
I think initially I could focus better for a couple weeks because I had, new assignments, new tasks, new focus. But then when he just kind of started popping out of nowhere and still showing up, it just kind of like made me start questioning, like what else is he gonna do, or like, and so that just increased my anxiety, increased the fear. And at that point I just was like, I just can't, like, I can't come to work every day and just wonder if he's gonna, do something crazy or make me feel stupid or whatever, especially not feeling supported like by management or anything. I just didn't really feel like I had any safe place or like allies that I could lean on if something were to happen.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for sharing that all with me. Okay, and you mentioned briefly as well that there are at least two other people that have kind of shared that they've had a similar experience. Obviously, you're all in kind of different positions, but is there any other person that you know of that's kind of aware of the things going on that maybe expressed concern or anything like that?
I don't believe so. I think that if there are like more women who, he's made advances towards, they're obviously very frightened as well and not wanting to, step forward at this time. I don't know to what extent, but the only one I know of is Janet. She was the one who gave me Sarah's name, but I don't know of anybody else directly who has had that experience or like even really knows what he's like.
Okay. I'd like to kind of shift gears a little bit to talk about just some of your end goals. I know that you mentioned that you came in here to kind of have an advocate for you, and I am curious just to kind of know, like in a perfect world, like what kind of resolutions you'd be hoping for. Before I do that, though, I just want to make sure I understand everything that you mentioned. So there's just been a number of things since you're assigned to Martin. He mentioned that he requested you specifically back in September, kind of started hitting on you. He had touched your thigh at a different point, thrown a pencil at you, put the M&Ms in your breast pocket, and you kind of mentioned it to the office manager. He said that, take a joke, it's not that big of a deal, which made you feel like you couldn't go to HR. You were eventually transferred to another office because they didn't want you to like cause any more problems in their eyes. And then Martin would still, even at that point, come and just kind of look at you at your new space. All this kind of just made you feel uncomfortable, upset, and ultimately in December you had to leave your job because you couldn't continue anymore. And at that point, you started paying for therapy, kind of to help work through it. Did I miss anything? Is there anything else that I should know, or that you'd want to add to that?
Not necessarily like part of that story. I think that's pretty like comprehensive of what has happened.
Okay, perfect. So again, I'd just love to hear from you, kind of what goals you have. What this would, if we could make it all. Obviously, it's horrible. And we can't, like, it'd be better if it had just never happened. But if we could kind of make it better through the legal process, kind of like, what would you be hoping for?
Yeah. So just to kind of paint the picture, the therapy bills I have had like to this point are already over $2,500.
Okay.
I was going twice a week for a while. Every session's $100. It adds up. And just kind of how my like treatment plan has been going with my therapist, I'll probably have to go for at least 6 more months. So that's gonna, increase my expenses, I guess. When I was working at Johnson & Jones, my salary was $69K.
Okay.
I had awesome benefits, so obviously that's been a pretty big blow, like not having that. So I think just like in a perfect world, what I would like is I'd like 100,000 at a minimum after like subtracting all, attorney fees and and all that. But yeah, like you had mentioned before, the secretary did explain like the contingency fee and all the settlement and all that. So yeah, if we could do a settlement, I don't like really want to go to trial if at all possible. I'd really not prefer that. So yeah, if we were to do just a settlement or award after the suit is scheduled, I would consider going as low as like 75,000, as long as that's like after fees and whatnot are taken care of. So yeah, I totally understand. Like I'm paying you guys to do a good job for me, so like I get that. But yeah, I think at least 75,000. Ideally, I'd like 100,000 from settlement situation.
Sure. Is there anything else you're concerned about as far as like punishment for the firm or anything like that that's important to you, or is it really just making sure that you kind of can recoup your expenses that you've had?
Yeah, I'm not really interested in, like, I mean, obviously, like, I don't want Martin to do this to other women, but that's not really, like, I'm not trying to go after people. I just kind of need, like, my needs taken care of,
Sure.
and so I'm, like, less stressed about all the finances.
When you mentioned you have a son, right?
Yeah, my son's at UCLA.
Okay, do you have any other children that you're concerned about or that you need to take care of or anything like that? It's been
No.
an expense for you?
Yeah, it's just my son. But yeah, like I am a single mom, so like I kind of take care of it. Like my ex is very supportive, and like he's been an awesome like father for him. But yeah, I'm kind of like the primary parent, I guess, for him.
Okay, is there any other reason why you prefer not to go to trial? Because you probably know this about me, like I'm willing to take it all the way through the process if need be. Like there are benefits to both that we'll get into in a little bit, but we're definitely willing to go through the entire process. Is there any other reason why you wouldn't want that besides just like obviously the time and
I mean, like I have like a couple reasons, but like I don't want it to like make me like look super bad or whatever. Like I don't know, like I can like get into it, I guess, but it's just kind of it like doesn't make me look super great. So, but like I don't know, you'll probably be fine with it. So like when I was working in Florida before moving to Seattle, I was also working as a legal secretary.
Okay.
And I actually did like have an affair with one of the brokers in the office. Sorry, did I mention it was a real estate office? Yeah, I was their secretary. Yeah, and I did have an affair with one of the brokers. It was while I was still married, so I know that like doesn't look super great. So I think that my issue is like I don't really want retribution against like any of the people because my son was actually like born from like that affair. So like my ex is not his father. He's been his like father figure his whole life, but yeah, just kind of like the sticky situation there. And then like I had another affair with like a different guy from a different firm. So just kind of the like after putting my ex-husband like through all of that, I just like don't really want to go that route again with like following action and whatnot. Just because I don't want to, hurt my son.
Sure.
Yeah, and like I said, like my ex has been great. Like we are like very solid like co-parents or whatever. And then the attorney who handled my divorce in Florida like knows that my son isn't like my ex's. But yeah, I basically like I just don't really want to go to trial because I don't want people to like question my history and like have to bring all this up because I feel like they'll just be like, oh well, you've done it before, so like why is it a big deal if like Martin wanted to do it with you? Yeah, and like just again, I get that like I could have gone to HR, I could have done a formal complaint and all that, but I didn't do it because I felt just really discouraged by like management and everything. So sorry, it's kind of like really messy, but
no, it's really helpful.
I just feel like knowing that information kind of like helps just kind of solidify my motivation for like I really just kind of like want to like get it settled, like get my needs taken care of and like not cause more problems for like my family or myself in the process.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. Like anything that we know that could potentially hurt your odds is great to kind of help us decide between the options that you have. So with that said, is there anything else you want to share about that, or anything else you'd be worried about coming out in trial, or anything? And even if it's as simple as like, I just don't want to go through all of the expense of trial and the time, we would just love to know because it can help us help you.
Yeah, I think that's the bulk of it. Is I don't want to cause any more. Just after what's my family's already gone through, I don't want to do all of that again and have all this stuff be brought up. Yeah, and I think it's just kind of like I've been in therapy. I've been trying to seek forgiveness and like kind of work on myself and like figure out emotionally like how to overcome what has happened. But I haven't completely overcome the overwhelm and kind of the fear of, I guess, retaliation, even though I'm not like seeking that. I just kind of like am timid approaching this process, I guess.
Sure.
Kind of mean.
So if we had to kind of rank your priorities, would you say that like a certain amount is more important to you in a settlement, or just like avoiding trial is the most important thing and you take a lower settlement if it meant you're avoiding trial, or is it more valuable to you to maybe get a higher amount even if it meant that some of these things might come out that you would prefer not to have come out?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think probably top priority would be not going to trial.
Okay.
I don't want to keep rehashing all of my like old stuff. I'd like to just leave it there and deal with this as a separate issue. But again, like if the settlement were to come in super lowball at like 40,000 or something like that, I would like not want to proceed with that either. But yeah, as far as priorities, I'd probably say not going to trial and then settlement amount probably after that.
Okay, and you said at least 75,000 would be kind of like the minimum that you would be willing to accept. Okay. Okay, are there any other goals that you'd say you have through the legal process, or anything else that is important to you?
Let me just like review my notes here real quick. I mean, I think the main thing is just like obviously I just kind of want my finances like stabilized. I want to like be able to see through therapy so I can like be able to like go get a job and like kind of get back to like what my life was like. I do think that it's like not okay that this was just something that happened. Like the office manager didn't even mention I could like fill a written report or file that or anything, and so I think that there needs to be some changes there. I don't know like how through the legal process that would look, but yeah, obviously like Johnson & Jones, like they just feel totally kind of like insulated from the Me Too movement. Like they just like don't even, I don't know if they just are completely unaware or like if they just don't care. But yeah, I kind of thought it was like pretty ridiculous that nobody could hold Martin or management or the firm, accountable for being kind of unethical, like treating people this way.
Sure.
So that's obviously like another issue, but it's there.
That's kind of maybe the third,
yeah.
The accountability piece is maybe your third priority then, is what I'm hearing you say.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to share with me? Just, obviously like we can get into the specifics of the law and things like that, but I just want to make sure that you've had the opportunity to kind of just, share everything you want to do and get it off your chest. And
yeah, no, this has been super helpful. I think I've given you kind of everything. Like, I don't really think there's any other like holes in the timeline or anything, or like my history. Yeah, I think it's everything.
Okay, perfect. I just want to reiterate, yeah, like this is all covered by attorney-client privilege, so it's just between us two. And I just really appreciate you sharing all of that. I know it's like really heavy and difficult to deal with, but it really helps us be able to help you, like I mentioned earlier. So again, before we kind of move on to the next section in our agenda, I just want to make sure that I understood everything correctly. So you mentioned that you spent $2,500 on therapy already. Your salary is about $70,000 before benefits. Along with that, your main priority is not going to trial because you don't want kind of some things from your past to be dredged up again and made public potentially. And then kind of your next priority is making sure that your settlement is at least $75,000 to cover some of your salary that you're missing and be able to see out therapy. But your preference would be to get more around $100,000 at least, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then kind of your third priority would just be maybe getting some accountability for the firm. Is that all correct? Am I missing anything?
I think that's perfect.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to give you a couple sheets of paper now just so that you have them as resources. And again, we're just going to kind of go through the options. I think that with what you mentioned, we're definitely going to try to do our very best to get a settlement first, because that with just that being your preference, it's not something that we would just choose. So when we're negotiating with the lawyers from for Johnson and Jones, any offer that they submit, we would check off with you.
Okay.
And we can give like certainly advice about if we think it's a good offer, if it's a bad offer. I've seen cases similar to yours in the past, and I think you have a really strong case. And so I think we could, I feel pretty confident that we could get a settlement more than 100K actually.
Oh.
If we were going to take this to trial, we would seek at least 500,000
Okay.
in damages, and I think we'd have a pretty good shot at that. But obviously, we don't know how willing the other side will be.
Right. Totally.
And then if it did have to go to trial, obviously as well, like there's no telling. But one thing that I did want to explain, so we have this little summary of the law here, and there's kind of these 3 points that I was trying to listen for as we talked. And again, we're taking care of the legal side, so you don't really have to like memorize this or anything. There won't be an exam for you.
Sure.
But when we're doing a sexual harassment claim, we're looking kind of for these 3 things. So that there was this unacceptable like physical or sexual conduct of a sexual nature that you, I think, described happening from Martin repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
The conduct was unwelcome is the second thing that we'd have to kind of show, which I think, again, you made it pretty clear to him on multiple occasions that the conduct was unwelcome. And the third piece is that the conduct was sufficiently severe to affect like your work environment, which I think it definitely was as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll kind of have this as we're negotiating with the other side to kind of show like we believe you have a strong case, and like this is how it would play out if it had to go to trial to hopefully get a good settlement for you. Another thing as part of this paper, and I guess this sheet goes along with it, if it were to go to trial, and again, I think this strengthens our ability to hopefully get a settlement for you. There are different types of damages you can get, and so they're kind of listed throughout here on this backside specifically under this remedies section. So there's compensatory damages, which is like money that you lost out on because of like the situation that was going on that was unacceptable. There's back pay, there's front pay, and that, again, that's just trying to make you whole. Because what happened to you, you had to leave your job, you had to take on the therapy, you were not able to find like a different job. A piece of this is making sure that we're mitigating damages, and so we could go through this in a future appointment, but just making sure that you have documentation like from your therapist that just says like the reason why she wasn't able to go get another job immediately was because she was dealing with like the trauma from these different things. So anyway, don't feel like you need to know all this, but I wanted you to have this.
Yeah, no, this is super helpful.
Just so that you kind of are aware of the law. Again, we think that you have a really strong case. I think you have a really strong case just based on what you've told me. And this is kind of the relevant law.
So this is for me?
Yeah, it is.
Awesome, thank you.
Just briefly, I want to kind of go through just generally what I see is kind of the pros and cons of settlement. So obviously it'll save time for you. Do you have any preference on if you would like to be there or not be there, anything like that, as we're
for like settlement
Yeah.
discussions?
And I guess when I say that, do you kind of know what that would look like?
No, that was actually a question I was gonna ask. Like, what, like, would it be like, would Martin be there? Like, is this really intense? I just like don't really want to rehash all of the things
Sure.
again. So yeah, if you could just like document like what does that even look like?
Yeah, so there's some different options. Sometimes we can do something called mediation, which is where we would show up as your representation would go with you. Potentially Martin would be there with his representation, and we'd kind of just give our side of the story, and someone kind of a third party that's just neutral would help us see if we can come to a zone of agreement. What I have seen though is that sometimes you'll meet separately. So it would be like you and I meeting with the mediator, and then the mediator would go to like a different room. It's all just based on what you're comfortable with. So I just want to be clear, I guess I could have been more clear about this from the beginning. In no scenario would you have to be in the same room with him. But we do have that option of bringing in a third party potentially that we would talk to, and he would talk with them as well. Which it sounds like you're not interested then in meeting like with him directly.
I mean, I would consider it. I think I've come a far enough way, like with therapy and everything, that I wouldn't be like having a panic attack or anything. I think I would like to be involved just kind of in the process, but obviously like if it's too much, like I'm totally okay just like having you go on my behalf or
Okay.
whatever, and just keeping me informed.
Yeah, so those are all options. We just wouldn't want you to do anything that you're uncomfortable with, for sure.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
But yeah, it essentially would just be sitting down in an office like this and negotiating, just seeing like these are what we feel are the strong points of our claim. These are kind of the demands that we have. And again, I know you mentioned that 100,000 is kind of what you're looking for, but I think we could do even more.
Okay.
Based on the damages that you suffered. And a key part of it would just be making sure that we have evidence to kind of back those things up, but it sounds like you do largely.
Yeah, and I can go back. The notes I made were kind of just like a general, so I like have it for you, but yeah, I can like go back on my actual
Perfect.
journals and stuff and get it out from my therapist. Totally.
Yeah, and again, like another benefit of trying to just handle it without going to court is that your privacy is maintained. A lot of time there's like a non-disclosure agreement that comes as part of it. So that's kind of a double-edged sword because on the one hand, the world doesn't know that Martin is doing this because of that NDA. But on the other hand, you get to maintain your privacy as well. And people don't know that you're involved in the case, and they don't have to like dig into your past potentially and bring those things to light as part of the trial. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, the other side sometimes is just unreasonable to deal with. But I think in this case, they'll be at least willing to sit down and kind of go through these things. Again, I probably wouldn't settle the claim for less than probably like 300,000.
Okay.
But it's totally your choice. Like you can go.
I just wasn't really sure
Up to
like
you.
where. I mean, I've worked for like legal firms, and so like I kind of get the scope, but I just was like I don't really know like where to even begin on that. So yeah, whatever you think,
Okay.
I'm willing to work with.
So let's talk about trial. I know your number one priority is not going to trial, but I still want to give you just some information about what it might look like,
Yeah, I appreciate it.
just to kind of help with that decision.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the biggest difference is that these things could be public information. There's no guarantee that they would be, but they'd probably contact like your previous employers. So if your previous employers have records about like Did you mention again? And one thing I want to check on. So when you were working for the real estate firm in Florida, were you fired from that job?
No, no, I wasn't fired.
But the HR department knows kind of about like the affairs and the things that happen.
Yeah, so they're aware of both
Okay.
both firsts that I had, but yeah, I wasn't fired or anything.
Okay.
I ended up just kind of quitting after that to kind of keep it simple.
And there wasn't any like non-disclosure agreement or anything.
No.
Okay.
There wasn't really a big deal about it because the father of my son just kind of was like not involved, so he just kind of let it lie. And my ex-husband stepped up as his father, so it kind of just fell by the wayside. But eventually we did get divorced. But yeah, as far as like affecting work, it wasn't really a big deal there.
Okay. And another thing I want to mention about trial is that sometimes it's kind of inevitable. Like I mentioned, like if they're not willing to work with us, we might have to go that route. Which on the bright side gives you kind of like your day in court. Like you can bring forward all of this information, and you have an opportunity to earn even more. Again, I think the value is probably about 500,000 with all the types of damages together.
Okay.
That would be what we would estimate, but again, there's just a lot of unknown there.
For sure.
Along with that, maybe some of the other people, if they saw you, would be willing to come forward. That's just one thing to think about as well. I think you generally have a pretty strong case, but it's never guaranteed. So do you have any questions about how trial might work?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I guess just my main concern, just in that that like I talked with Janet. I haven't talked with Sarah, but like they just like don't really want to be involved. So that would be just kind of another concern. I know like if they're just completely unreasonable.
Neither of them wanted to be involved?
No, they don't want to testify. They don't want to even be really listed as part of it, but they are, additional, I guess, witnesses to like Martin's behavior. But yeah, they are not really wanting to move forward. So I don't know how that would really affect the strength of the case, I guess. But yeah, that is just kind of a concern, like just for their protection. Like I wasn't coming in here trying to just throw their names around.
Right. Yeah, and that is the last piece that I was going to bring up about trial is that it sounds like you're at least somewhat familiar with the Me Too movement. You mentioned that a second ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that's very important to me. Like, I don't know if you knew, but I helped draft our policy here at this firm, and that's one of the places that we've worked on sexual harassment. But a lot of time it ends up being like a he said, she said in court, and obviously like he'll probably deny doing anything. And,
right, especially because like nobody saw like most of the stuff. Yeah, I'd imagine so.
And it's definitely like we've come some ways, right, from where it used to be. But is there anybody else you think could be a witness? Because that can be a good piece, is if somebody is willing to kind of come forward and either sign a statement or vouch for your story on your behalf. Like, I don't know if that would be if we have to go to trial, either because we can't get a settlement or they're not willing to, or the settlement comes in and it's just not acceptable.
Sure.
Is there anybody you think that could maybe?
I mean, obviously I haven't really like talked to anybody. The only person I've even told about any of this is like my best friend from Florida. But just, I mean, potentials that I can think of, maybe like the people who like saw what he did around Halloween. I'd have to like think about who was actually there in that group, but there were several there that day that saw it happen, so like they could be potentials. Also just the paralegal and the second attorney I worked for, like they saw him come over and just kind of like stare at me.
Sure.
So yeah, they like saw it. I don't know to what extent they could really like witness, but like they knew that he was showing up all the time and it was stressing me out.
When we have an investigator in our firm that if it comes to it could potentially reach out to these people and see if they're willing. Would you say that most people in the firm, though, at least in your circles, like kind of are aware of Martin's behavior and maybe would be open to testifying, or was the feeling that you got that people might be kind of nervous to challenge?
I think it's just kind of a mixed bag. I do, just from Janet's comments, I think that there must be other women who have experienced similar things to us. But kind of like I said at the beginning, like Martin's kind of the big deal of the firm. And so obviously, like, management and the other, partners are pretty protective of him because they like want him to keep bringing in business.
Sure.
So I'm not sure to what extent there might be pushback, with the other paralegals, the other secretaries. I'm sure there are some, but it would just be like helping them know that, they'll be safe and they'll,
Yeah.
not have scary things happen if they do say their experiences.
Okay.
But I'm sorry, I don't have any other like.
No, that's totally fine. And obviously,
names.
this is kind of like the beginning of the process still. Okay. Well, do you have any other questions about settlement versus trial versus kind of any other concerns you have?
I mean, I've expressed kind of my priorities, but just, I mean, as my legal counsel, what would you, I guess, like, suggest? Like, would you suggest, like, it's worth it going to trial just to try and, like, get more for damages? Or, like, would settlement, like, be simpler? I don't know. You have more experience in this, so, like, what do you think? What would you, like, suggest, I guess?
Yeah, I've seen cases pretty similar to yours in the past, and it's just never guaranteed, right? Because it will depend on kind of what we can get as far as witnesses. And
Sure.
But I do think you have a strong case. I think we could be successful at trial, but ultimately it's your decision. My desire from this consultation is just to kind of lay out all the options for you so that you can make the best decision possible. I do think we definitely can pursue settlement first and pursue it as strongly as we can, and then just see what happens, right? And we'll keep you involved throughout the process of any offers that come through from the other side, and then you'll be able to make a decision at that point. So I guess today it's not really necessarily deciding like,
which one?
Or am I going to go straight to trial, or am I going to pursue settlement? Like we'll have at any point they could give you an offer and you could reject it if you don't feel good about it. Okay. But I think with your priorities that you've expressed today, I think we definitely want to pursue a settlement just to see kind of what possibility there is. Is
there like a typical, I'm sure it like varies case to case, but is there like a typical timeline? Like, is this the type of thing where it's like by the end of the week we'll like?
Yeah, unfortunately, there is like some time involved. A case can be, multiple months into more than a year, into multiple years sometimes. Settlement's usually a bit faster than that because we don't want to just like try to hash it out forever. And there's also time limitations on how long after the events you can bring a case. But it would probably still be a couple months. Trying to negotiate that for you, but I do think that we'll try to do that first, and then if the case can't be settled, we would probably try to get a right to sue letter from the EEOC. So are you familiar with the EEOC a little bit from filing the claim?
Yeah, just kind of like I know they exist, and like I like went that route, but it kind of seems like there's like delays on that end, and they have to gather their own stuff. So yeah, I'm not like super familiar.
So the EEOC kind of just handles workplace issues, and so you have to actually get like permission from them, the right to sue to bring the case.
Okay.
And I think usually they like to see that we've tried to make some kind of settlement, but also they're very cognizant that like if it's an unreasonable claim, you have a right to kind of pursue these things in court. Okay. And then we would file, if it got to that point, if we got that permission, we would file a complaint alleging sex discrimination under Title VII and probably some claims under state law for intentional infliction of emotional distress. So just to kind of give you an idea, that's like a broad overview of what we'd be looking at. With that said, if we were to get a settlement, you're suddenly getting this income. It's not like your normal paycheck coming through because it's from a big firm. We don't have to worry about them like slowly taking it out of someone's paycheck to give to you. It would be more just like the settlement will come from the firm because like the employer and there's some more information on the sheet as well, but the employer a lot of the times is the one that's paying it out, not the individual person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So with that said, there are tax consequences that you should know about and consider. That's not my area of expertise as an attorney in these matters, but I did want to give you this document as well that just has some information about different tax advisors in the area. Some of them are going to be more cost effective than others, but it would just be kind of up to you to get different opinions about how that might affect you. Potentially it could make it more or less worth it to get a settlement, or like a settlement for different amounts. But anyway.
So would you recommend like going to see them pretty promptly, or?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Yeah, just kind of
Just
whenever
kinda
you
get an
can.
idea.
And their phone numbers are just right here on the side.
Perfect.
I can't like tell you to go to one specifically.
Sure.
But these are just all of the ones kind of in our area.
I appreciate it.
And then I know you mentioned you're good at you're happy with your therapist, but just with these kind of tough issues, we also have on the same page just recommendations for different therapists if you ever need to make a change. They're all just people that have worked with clients that we've had in the past. So
Thank you. That's
hopefully they can be
awesome.
helpful for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
All right. With that said, I just kind of want to go through any next steps or any last issues that you have, any kind of final questions. We're kind of coming up to the end of our session here, so I just want to make sure that before we leave here in the next 6 to 7 minutes that you kind of have any of your doubts taken care of and you feel good about everything from today.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think you have been, very helpful. Even just like hearing it back from you has been like helpful to be like, okay, yeah, that is like what happened. That is how it went down. Yeah, I think just main things, like obviously I want to get back to where I was. Like I want to be able to, get back in the workplace and get to a place where I feel like I can put this behind me and like get back to, just like my life, I guess. Yeah, it has taken a lot to kind of get me to this point where I'm finally prepared to, take action and try and, do something, I guess, because I was just so paralyzed by the anxiety and the fear for, several months. But yeah, I just I think at the end of the day, like I only worked there for like 16 weeks, and just all of the things that happened, even in my first month, like it was almost every day, and so I just feel like if it happened to me, like surely it's got to be happening to someone else. And I just feel like hopefully this will kind of maybe open a door for some of the other women, if there are, more than just the ones I've already talked with. Like hopefully that opens up options for them too. Yeah, this has been like really helpful just to kind of like put it all out there and just kind of like review everything, and even bringing up, not the most shiny parts of my history has just kind of been really helpful, and hopefully it's good information, I guess, that can propel it forward in a good way. That's kind of my hope.
Yeah, well, yeah, just thank you so much for being forthcoming. Obviously, you can always come in to our office whenever you need. And I can also give you our number. Let me write this down. And you can call me whatever time you need. Obviously, it just goes into our normal like fee structure that our secretary mentioned to you.
Perfect.
But if you do need help, you can call me at any time.
Thank you.
And then you can also email us, and I'll put our firm email on here as well. And I'll do some more, that's for you.
Thank you.
I'll do some more kind of research into the case and different options that we have, and we'll try to get something scheduled. Kind of the next step would be to send, it's essentially a letter to your employer, just letting them know that you're represented, and kind of our intention to move forward with a sexual harassment claim if we need to, but expressing willingness to negotiate a settlement if we can. just so that they're aware, and then we can kind of begin this process. And again, if you have any issues come up or anything that you change your mind on, just please let me know and we'll get it taken care of.
Perfect. I guess just one other question I have is this, so I guess just moving forward, reaching out to them, ball's kind of in their court. Do I need to set, like, I'm kind of new to this, do I need to set like another appointment with you for follow-up, or is it just I'll be notified once a settlement situation has been scheduled, or
Yeah,
what
great
does that kinda
question.
look like?
We'll take care of kind of this next portion for you, so you can kind of just hang tight. In the meantime, maybe reach out to the tax advisor and just kind of explain, like, I'm involved with this kind of case. They're again under confidentiality, and just kind of get a feel for like how the tax consequences might affect you. And then we will be contacting you kind of as we're ready to go forward with some of the next steps.
Sounds good.
All right, Rena, it's been great talking to you, and thanks so
Yeah,
much for
thank you.
coming into our office.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the snack.